What's going on, everyone? This is Bob here from Musimplorer, trying to take down another music genre today, which is rock and roll. Yeah. Rock and roll. Okay. So rock and roll has many different origins, and going back to when it was coming out, I want to take this video and maybe make it a little bit more of what is rock today. Okay, brief history about rock and roll. The term was coined over in Cleveland, Ohio, back in the 1950s, describing this kind of movement and beat of a very fast pace and kind of a groovy rhythm, right? I would say rock and roll goes back a little bit further, and in a lot of ways, in classical music. There's been such artists or composers like Mozart, for example, that composed rock. However, with the piano, right, kind of a quartet kind of setting. In terms of where is the genre today and how it is developed, I think rock is really gone the route of more what does it mean to today's society, right? Today's movements, and that really also kind of shapes the genre. So you go back to the 1950s, first name that comes to mind of rock and roll, Elvis, right? Elvis, literally the king, right? King of rock and roll. One of the most amazing songwriters, right? And also when he covers other people's music, coming here to the next one, really embodies the spirit, right? And that spirit of letting loose, checking, moving, that's rock and roll. Okay, going back to those cover parts, another famous artist from the 50s, Chuck Berry. Arguably, I think one of the best guitar players, at least it comes to mind, right? But nothing can beat also his dance moves when he was playing the guitar. And once again, it's coming to that freak out, that move, that groove kind of feeling. If we go into the 60s, Chuck Berry is still very, very much popular during this time period, right? But towards the end, you also get a new development and taking the guitar to the next level, right? You've got the Byrds, for example, as well as also you've got the Grateful Dead, taking a little bit of a different aspect. And finally, you've got arguably the best guitar player, Jimi Hendrix, right? So you take these names, and of course there is many more, right, out there of rock artists. But really you start developing that sound that's portraying to also the movements going on, all social movements, right? And that's kind of developed into it. You notice once again, it's another young generation, next generations pertaining to that. If you go towards the 70s, right, that's when you start hearing that term classic rock being thrown out and developed, right? You have bands such as Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, right, just to name a few. And you start hearing that more of that driving sound where you can almost kind of put it like sort of in a disco, a dance hall, right? And where people can begin to dance to it. Once again, going back is that time period, right? Now there's bands that have also spanned from the 70s to the 80s, such as Queen, moving into that more of that further step in that disco kind of route, right? Where there is that movement, there is that grooving, and where you can really dance to the music, so to speak. I think as you get into the 90s, that's where rock and roll really starts kind of branching out, right? And I think the terms, like for example, in the previous video of grunge, right, start branching out into sort of alternative rock and roll. And that becomes more of the norm, bringing different sounds. What I think where rock and roll survives and really what makes rock rock is that spirit of letting loose, letting go, having an awesome time, and not being afraid to put yourself out there. And that's rock and roll for me. I hope you enjoyed this video. It was a lot of fun making it. And stay tuned for next week. We'll also have a video on garage rock coming out. If you have not done already, please hit the subscribe button. It really helps here. Also growing the channel. as well as getting more interest in terms of the playlists of music videos. But otherwise, stay safe and rock on, Musimplorer.